This is a disposable camera with everything that looks, feels or smells vintage being cool again. These have made a real comeback. Wait, let me take a photo of you. 1 second. Oh no, wait, I gotta turn on the flash. If this had a screen, I could show you this is the best photo anybody's ever taken of you. These things are awesome because they offer such an easy and affordable entry into film photography, but there's one problem. Every time you want to take 36 photos, you have to buy a whole new camera. That's like using fresh toilet paper every time you want to take a... Wait a minute. Anyways, another issue with these is that you don't get a lot of control over your image. Actually, you don't get any control at all. You kind of just press the shutter button and hope for the best. Well, fortunately, it's super easy to get that vintage, punchy, disposable camera look with any digital camera, even with your phone. And I'm gonna show you how to do it right now. Look, I'm gonna be honest, I've spent way too much time trying to get the disposable camera look on my digital cameras. And one day I got a comment from a guy on YouTube who asked me, why do you spend thousands of dollars on modern digital cameras only to then try and make your photos look like they were taken 40 years ago? And man, I really wish I had an answer for you, but I don't. I don't know, it just tickles my brain. I don't know why. One thing that is really interesting about these disposable cameras is that you don't have to change any settings. On normal analog cameras, wait, I have one over there. On normal analog cameras, you have to change your aperture, your shutter speed, you have to think about the ISO of your film, you have to do so much stuff. But on these, you don't have to do anything because the camera does everything for you. Or does it? Well, actually, these cameras are built in a way that they basically don't have to do anything. The lens in these cameras is just like me in middle school, not very bright. This is a fixed focus f10 lens that is specifically designed to get almost everything in focus. That's why you don't have to fuss around with focusing like on these cameras, because these are literally built to get everything in focus from like 5 bananas to infinity focus. Also, this camera only has one single shutter speed that was chosen specifically so you don't get any blurry or shaky photos. I think Kodak knows that like 80% of the people that use these are probably drunk. These cameras just are as stupid and simple as photography gets. They basically just have one setting that works well enough in most daylight situations, but as soon as you go indoors, that's like wearing sunglasses and walking through your living room. Yeah, might look cool, but you're gonna stub your pinky toe on every available piece of furniture. So to counteract the terrible low-light performance, they put this big old flash up here that you pretty much need as soon as you step indoors. Even on the box it just says use flash indoors. So that's the first of the 3 main things I've identified to getting the disposable camera look. Basically, as soon as you step inside, just start blasting your friends with a flash. Yeah, I'm just wasting all of these photos for this video, I hope it's worth it. Another important tip is to use a lens that is roughly 30mm, because that's about the focal length of these cameras. But I was using a 40mm lens and that was fine as well. So as long as you're like in the same ballpark, it's gonna be fine. Also, when you're trying this, consider closing your aperture because these things don't produce any bokeh. Like, they want to get as much as possible in focus, so this is not the time for crazy bokeh. Well, surprisingly enough, your phone already does most of those things because the main camera in here is usually around 30mm, and because the sensor in here isn't that big, you're already getting almost everything in focus anyways. So all you have to do is just, turn on the flash and off you go. Once you have taken a bunch of photos using a, direct flash and all of your friends have now uninvited you from their birthday parties because they're sick of having spots in their vision from your stupid flash, the next step is editing. This is probably the most important step and makes up at least 50% of this look. 30% are using a direct flash and the other 20% are locked behind a religious ritual where you sacrifice a digital camera to the analog gods. No, I'm just kidding, of course we'll talk about the other 20% later. The easiest way to edit these images, the way I edit them, is to use the Disposable Vibes preset pack I've just released today. I've put a lot of work into these so you can get the perfect disposable camera look with a single click in Lightroom. But I don't want you to think that I've made this video just to sell you something, so now I'm going to show you how to make your own preset to achieve this look. First off, you might need to adjust your exposure, especially when you're using a flash. Your exposure can change a lot from image to image depending on how close your subject is to the flash. Then we're going to head into the curve adjustments. We're going to add a point here and darken the shadows. Next, we're going to add a point up here and brighten up the highlights. We want to create a steep fall off from the bright to the dark parts, because that's what film does. It retains highlight information well, but any detail in the shadows is lost pretty quickly. Then also pull this top point down and this bottom point up, because film usually doesn't reach true white or true black. Now we're gonna go to color and increase the vibrance a bit, because the film that is put into these disposable cameras has pretty punchy colors. Next, we're heading into the color grading tab for one of the most important steps. What you will commonly see on disposable camera images is quite a heavy green tint in the shadows, so we're just gonna add a decent amount of green here. But don't go overboard, otherwise your friends are gonna be asking why they look like Shrek. I've made that mistake before. Then in the midtones we're going to add a bit of cyan, and in the highlights a decent amount of orange. Then in effects we're going to go ham on the clarity slider, pulling it to the left, because I love when my photos look like I just sneezed on the lens. No, I'm just kidding, about -30 is enough. This takes out some sharpness and creates a bit of bloom around any bright spots in the image. And of course add a ton of grain. I usually go to around 50 with my grain and increase the size and roughness as well, but I would just experiment here depending on how noticeable you want the effect to be. And that's basically it for editing. This is a really good starting point for any film-like edit. Of course there's a lot more you could do to add some extra spice to the image, because we've barely touched the color tools, but tweaking the settings and the colors to work on a bunch of different photos is a task that literally takes me months of back and forth, and that's why I've been putting off releasing this new preset pack for a while. If you want to save yourself the months of tweaking I've put into making these presets, I'm gonna leave a link with a hefty discount code for you below. This pack gives you a bunch of different disposable camera looks that give you a super quick way to teleport your photos back to the 90s. And seriously, thank you so much to the people who support me. Because of you, I can continue making videos on the internet filled with bad jokes and photography, and you have no idea how much that means to me. Anyways, we've now talked about 80% of what goes into faking the disposable camera look. But if you want to go all the way, we need to talk about those final 20%. Thousands of years ago, ancient civilizations have already asked this question. Only recent studies have been able to decipher their secret works. And out of all ancient civilizations, only the Egyptians found an answer. Maybe the answer to faking the ultimate disposable camera film look is to just use a disposable camera's lens and stick it on a digital camera. So I've tasked my friend with using his mechanical engineering brain to design a 3D printable enclosure you can stick a disposable camera's lens into. I had to ask him because I'm a computer science man and I'm scared of anything that isn't inside the computer. Here it is, this is it. Maybe I can now finally reach God status of faking the disposable camera look. And a huge thank you to Paul, who put a lot of work into designing and making this. By the way, if you want to 3D print a lens like this yourself, you can download the file from my store. There's a link down below. It's pay what you want, so you can download it for completely free. This isn't even the final version. We went through like 16 or so. And an additional tip, you don't have to buy a new disposable camera to get a lens for this project. Just go to a shop that develops film and ask them. They usually have a whole bin of used disposable cameras they've already taken the film out of and that they don't really have any use for anymore. So what you're gonna do is take one of those used used and broken disposable cameras and rip out the lens assembly. Just make sure that you don't touch the capacitor for the flash, because that's gonna hurt, so don't do that. Once you've taken out the plastic lens assembly, you have to strip off all of the excess plastic that is on the foot of the barrel, and once you've done that, you can simply stick it in the 3D printed piece. Here are some results. Let me know if you think this was worth it. Using an actual disposable camera lens is really cool and definitely just gives you that extra bit of magic to achieve the look. So it's definitely worth trying in my opinion. But the lens does have an extreme amount of, let's say, character. So in some cases I would still use a normal lens, because that gives you a lot more control and you can still decide afterwards how you want to edit the images. Okay, that's pretty much all I have to say. Have a good one. Bye bye. Tips Fedora.